Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us in another edition of the Christian Origins of Nearly Everything. I'm your quick Christian history guy, Jeff Kenny, with a topic that's sure to get some debate going alongside this video, the Christian origins of Halloween. And once again, we've got to do some myth busting here, since for some Christians and non-Christians alike, Halloween is an instant no because of its roots as a pagan festival, which continue in the celebration of the macabre and even evil in popular American culture today, right? Well, as it turns out, like so many poorly researched myths about Christian history, completely wrong. Let's start with the basics. The word Halloween, of course, comes from the Old English phrasing of All Hallows Evening. That is the vigil, or the night before, the Feast of All Saints' Day. Hallowed or holy derives linguistically from the same source as sanctus, which is where we get the word saint. So just as Christmas Eve or Midsummer's Eve, among others, are celebrations utilizing the ancient Jewish tradition of beginning a feast or holy day on the evening before that day, so too does Halloween simply refer to the eve of what is today a holy day of obligation in the Catholic Church and a celebrated feast day for some Protestant churches, including the Episcopal or Anglican Church as well. While a special day was set aside initially in May to remember all martyrs and later all saints, and incidentally many Eastern Orthodox Christians continue to observe this feast that time of year instead of November, it was during the reign of Pope Gregory III in the early 700s AD that a church was dedicated on November 1st in honor of all the saints, and the local observance of the feast on that date began. The feast became a universal feast across all of Christendom not many years later, and by the medieval period was known as All Hallows Day in England, which brings us, of course, to the term Halloween. It was also in England, after the Protestant Reformation, that All Saints' Day and its vigil were suppressed, and their customs outlawed, with Christmas itself banned in 1647. In the northeastern U.S., Puritans outlawed both Christmas and Halloween, with Christmas brought back primarily by Catholic immigrants in the 1800s. The most recent attacks on Halloween erroneously claim it's more or less a direct descendant of the Celtic harvest festival Samhain, though it's interesting that such a claim didn't surface until more than 1,000 years after All Saints' Day became a feast. Given that the vast majority of Celtic people had been converted to Christianity hundreds of years before All Saints' Day became a feast, it makes sense that there's no evidence at all that Pope Gregory III or IV even knew about Samhain. That said, it is true that some elements of the old harvest festivals did survive among Christians, such as carving turnips as we might carve pumpkins, collecting treats house to house, among others. But you know what other pagan element was retained by Christians? Evergreen trees as symbols of life during the cold winter months. Also, pagans invented early mathematics and democratic government and the Olympics, and they had religions with holy books too. Does that suggest that all of the above are inherently maintained out of dedication to pagan religious beliefs by Christians or non-Christians, either one? Obviously not. It might also be worth noting that some aspects of Halloween, such as dressing and costumes, are historically typical aspects of celebrating a Christian feast, and were frequently engaged in during, for example, Twelfth Night or Epiphany Eve celebrations. By the way, it's also true that historically many Christians believed that around the time of All Saints, the wall separating the living on earth from those alive in Christ in heaven or in purgatory, or even in hell, is less pronounced, and souls in those places can be seen more easily. This, by the way, was also true during the Christmas season, hence the old tradition of ghost stories at Christmas, which indirectly gave us novels like Frankenstein and Dickens' A Christmas Carol. It also sheds some light, of course, on some of the spookier aspects of the ethos of the All Saints' Day Vigil. And as with Christmas, Halloween in American culture over the past century plus has been heavily commercialized and shorn of its Christian roots. This only increased as some occultists, Wiccans, even movie makers capitalized on the holiday to exaggerate its supposedly dark elements and shun its Christian context. American anti-Catholicism didn't help, and some folks with strong anti-Catholic tendencies also fostered a fair amount of misinformation about the holiday over the decades. By the way, it's somewhat ironic that many Christian churches have opted for supposedly less pagan alternatives to Halloween in the form of harvest festivals. In fact, such an event has more in common with the dreaded Celtic Samhain festival than the actually Christian-rooted Halloween. After all, do misappropriations of Christmas lead to most Christians abandoning that holiday? And it seems odd to seek a Christian alternative to an already Christian holiday, though of course it's a free country. Though it should go without saying that Christians ought to avoid engaging in activities at Halloween which genuinely dabble in or celebrate the occult or evil. And it's true that our often broken and misguided secular culture often does just that. It's better at least to be informed of the historically Christian roots of a holiday, which can be just good costume fun for Christians of all stripes. I'm your quick Christian history guy, Jeff Kenny, wishing you a spooky, good, and holy All Hallows Eve. Until next time.